Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our virtual open house for our online Master of Social Work program. We are very excited to get started. We're just going to wait a few moments more for everyone else who might be trying to log in and for them to get situated. And while we are waiting, if you all would not mind practicing with the chat box by letting me know that you can hear me clearly by stating your first name and where you're joining us from. And then we'll get started here at 7:05. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you again to everyone for joining us this evening. We are excited here to get started. My name is Pam, and I'm an admissions representative here for the online Master of Social Work program. I'm here as a resource for all of you to give information, answer questions, and walk through the admissions application process if this is indeed something you decide to move forwards with. So we'll get started here on this evening. So the agenda for this evening, we are going to meet the presenters to begin with. And then we are going to obviously focus on, why Mason's Master of Social Work program, focusing on curriculum details, the asynchronous learning format, focusing also on field practicum and career outlooks. They'll also be focusing on the stipend programs that are available, and then we'll end today with a focus on admission requirements, and there will be a Q&A portion as well towards the end of the evening. So that's our agenda for today. A few housekeeping items here that I want to review before we jump in. Feel free to use any of these features this evening. We have our chat instructions here in your controls at the bottom window. Click chat for the chat window to appear and type your message. You can also select who you would like to send the message to by clicking on the drop down next to to. You can raise your hand, of course, during the webinar. I do recommend waiting towards the end if you have any questions, because it might be addressed, of course, during the actual evening. And as I said, there will be a Q&A portion at the very end of the session. And you'll be able to type your questions in that box, and we'll be able to get to those at the very end today. All right, without further delay, I would like to hand over to our presenters this evening. We have Dr. Daphne King and Professor Melissa Hensley. Over to you guys.
All right, perfect. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for your interest in the MSW online program here at George Mason University. I am Dr. King. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am the program director for our online program, as well as an assistant professor here in the Department of Social Work. I teach the Introduction to Social Work and Social Welfare, so the first course that students take when they start the program. I teach that course, as well as psychopathology, and all of the clinical courses connected to the children, youth, and families specialization. And then I will kick it over to Professor Hensley.
Thank you, Dr. King. I'm sorry, my voice is a little bit, it's not great tonight. I've not been feeling too good, but it's great to be here. It's great to see all of you here as well. My name is Melissa Hensley. Pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm one of the assistant directors in the field education office. And so my primary role is working with students to coordinate the practicum, getting to know your interests, and we work with students individually throughout that whole process. And I also teach one of the practicum seminar courses online. So it's great to be here, and I look forward to sharing more about the practicum program.
Awesome. So as we started tonight, I think it's always important for us to take a look at the field of social work, especially since you all are applying to a graduate social work program. And it's really important to understand the mission of the social work profession as presented here on this slide. This information came from the National Association of Social Workers. And as social workers, we go into the profession because we want to help others, as well as we're focused on the well-being of individuals, the well-being of society, and the well-being of our clients. And with clients, that can be an individual, a family, a group, or community. And so, our primary mission, or the primary function of our mission, is to help meet those basic human needs, those things that encompass, how we live, how we're functioning in society. We also work with addressing the needs and empowerment of people who have been historically oppressed and vulnerable in our country and living in poverty. Again, our focus is dual, because we do focus on the well-being of an individual in the context of their environment, as well as the well-being of society. And within that dual focus, we also promote social justice, and we promote social change so that everyone has access to equal resources, and that those things are equitable for individuals, for families, for communities, and society as a whole. As you can see from this slide, there is an expected job growth in the field of social work by 2030. We are one of the fastest growing professions in the US. Social workers are positioned to also address, the mental health shortage, or the shortage of mental health providers in our country. And here at George Mason University's Master of Social Work program, or the Department of Social Work, we are positioning ourselves to help fill that gap in the workforce through students that we graduate from our program. And this slide just features a little bit about what makes our program unique. We are very proud and pleased to be able to say that in 2022, we were ranked as one of the top 10 best online MSW programs by Forbes Advisor. We have faculty that have a wealth of knowledge and experience within the field of social work, as well as within researching various areas within social work. We have a curriculum that really is developed around social justice and system transformation, and really looking at some of the macro and policy implications that affect the practice that we do as social workers. We do have an advanced standing option for those applicants or students that have a BSW from an accredited university. There is a process that we go through for advanced standing. And then there are, various financial aid programs. We'll talk a little bit later about some of the stipend programs that we have within the social work department. And also you have lifetime access to career services through George Mason. A little bit about our curriculum. So for any student that is starting the program that's not admitted to advanced standing, you will take 60 credit hours to complete the program. Advanced standing takes 33 credit hours to complete the program. So as you can see here, for students that are starting in the traditional track, we have a list of our generalist courses, and the generalist courses really set the foundation for your social work education. These are the courses that give you that knowledge and skills to work with clients across multiple settings and multiple areas. The first course, Social Work 600, is the Foundations of Social Work and Social Welfare, which is one of the courses that I teach in the program. And it provides a history of the social work profession, talks about various careers and areas within social work, as well as some of the practice settings. Again, the generalist courses are going to set the foundation for you beginning your clinical courses. So we have 2 specializations within the MSW program: children, youth, and families, as you can see here, and adults and healthy aging. Within each of the specializations, there are certain courses that you will take, but you will take those courses once you complete all of your generalist courses. And one thing that is not listed with the list of courses for the 2 specializations are the field practicum courses. So just as you take 672 and 673, which are your generalist field practicum course and seminar, you will also take 2 practicum courses within your specialization or clinical courses. And those 2 practicum courses are 696 and 698. They are both your specialization practicum courses. And we can go to the next slide. So the MSW online program is primarily asynchronous, and that just means that you engage in the courses and coursework on your own time according to your own schedule. It means that the courses are primarily self-directed. You will have a faculty member assigned to each course. Your faculty member, will record pre-recorded lecture videos. They will provide, instruction, via Zoom, via class discussions, an email. But with the asynchronous component of the online program, that just means that there are not any set times or days that you have to log into your courses. There are set due dates for the assignments. So you do want to make sure that you're frequently engaging in the course and logging into Blackboard to access the course, but you won't have a set day or time that you have to meet. But there are set due dates for the assignments. There are some faculty or the faculty in the program will have virtual office hours. So the virtual office hours generally occur on a certain day and time. Some instructors will hold optional synchronous class sessions via Zoom, where you would log into Zoom at the time set for that synchronous class session. Your field practicums, as you will hear a little bit later, are not asynchronous. Your field practicums, you will report to your practicum agency during those traditional business hours, and those are in person. There is a seminar course also connected to your practicum that Professor Hensley will discuss, but again, the field practicums are not asynchronous.
So we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the practicums. The field education or the practicum is the signature pedagogy of social work education. And so it's really that opportunity to transition from the classroom into the community. You're going to be working with clients and interacting with colleagues and interdisciplinary teams, and really be able to put into practice what you're learning in the classroom, your frameworks, and everything that you're learning in the textbook, and actually see it in action. The purpose is to provide that opportunity where you will be a student, even though you'll be in an agency setting. And so, we try to preserve that space for you to be a student and to, practice and take the time to kind of think through each of those steps so that you are ready when you graduate to, be a social worker. Field education is comprehensive. As Dr. King mentioned, you have the classroom component, which is asynchronous, but the time that you are at the agency, and I'll talk more about the hours and how that works here in a minute. So you'll have that classroom component plus the agency component, which is your practice experience. You'll have assignments, clinical supervision on site. You'll be evaluated by both your professor and the agency instructor, and then it'll give you an opportunity to practice your social work skill set in the community. I also wanted to mention, and we don't have to go back on the slides, but just wanted to highlight that your practicum experience is centered on the 9 social work competencies. So you'll be seeing that and hearing more about that. But all of the work that you do is going to be centered around those 9 social work competencies. And that's the skills that you'll want to be able to demonstrate for each year as you go through the program. So your generalist year is going to be, it's a fall and spring semester. So 16 hours per week from August through the end of April, early May. So it is broken into semesters. So for the fall semester, you'll do 225 hours, and then you'll have a winter break and then go back to the same agency, the same course, and finish your second half to total 450 hours by the end of April, early May. For each week that you're there, you'll have at least 1 hour minimum of supervision with the instructor on site, who's a social worker in practice and who meets the requirements for our accreditation. So you'll have at least 1 hour of that time, which is really an opportunity to get feedback, ask those questions, talk about your assignments, and just have that one-on-one dialogue as an additional support while you're progressing through the practicum. Again, students must demonstrate competency in all areas, and that goes from everything starting at demonstrating ethical and professional behavior, engaging in policy practice, completing assessments, engaging with clients, interventions, evaluations. And so there's a range of skills that you'll be practicing throughout the practicum. Generalist tasks for your generalist year, as Dr. King mentioned, is really your foundation skill set. So it's going to be a balance between, excuse me, sorry about my voice. It's going to be a balance between direct service and engaging with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. And then also about half of your time is going to be more of the policy side of things, maybe looking at some of the administrative work that social workers do. So it'll be a balance for you so that you kind of have an overview of the social worker's role in the agency setting. So you'll do that for fall and spring, your generalist year, and then summer you'll do your classes, and then starting the following August, or when you're ready past your generalist practicum, you'll begin your specialization year practicum. Again, that starts in August and will go through the end of April, early May. So it's the same calendar for you, but it's going to be more hours. So between that amount of time, you'll do 20 hours a week, so that you'll do 300 in the fall semester and then 600 by the time you finish at the end of spring. Same thing with supervision. You'll have an hour of supervision with your field instructor. And then again, you'll be demonstrating all 9 of the social work competencies, but you'll have a little bit more of an in-depth your practice behaviors and learning activities, and the things that you do are going to be a little more specialized for your second practicum. Again, you're going to be for both practicums, demonstrating skills at the micro, meso, and macro level. Your specialization year is going to be a little bit more, I would say about 75% of your time will be in direct service with clients. And then again, we try to align that with your specialization. So we look at your specialization of children, youth, and families, or adults and healthy aging, and try to align your practicum with that. Again, it really gets complicated when we start talking about what agencies are for what specialization, because there's a lot of overlap. We often present, the example of, when students want to work with youth and children, a lot of times you're working with the parents, the family unit. So it's really hard to be exclusive on that. So we just, like to say that up front, and, encourage students to keep an open mind. It's all going to be a learning experience. The practicum is really an opportunity for you to practice. You are not obligated to practice your entire career based on your specialization. So, we just want to emphasize that up front, to keep an open mind, be flexible, but we do our best to listen to students' interests, and situations and all of that as we plan for the agency. We have agencies all over the country. And so I see that we have a number of students here from outside of Northern Virginia. So we're excited about that. But we do partner with agencies all over the country. As Dr. King mentioned, most agency opportunities are going to be during normal business hours, and that's to make sure that you get that well-rounded experience. We definitely don't want students to be in an agency where the clients are all asleep. We're not really going to get that learning experience. So we want to make sure that it's a good fit. This is social work. We know that things happen 24/7. And so we recognize that as well. So we just try to, look at that specific agency and when they're in operation. But I would say most of the time, if not, majority of the time, it's going to be during normal business hours during the week. So we can go to the next slide. So again, we have partnerships all over. We have hundreds of partnerships. And there's not really one type of agency. It's really where social workers are needed in the community. So a lot of times we get that question, is it going to be a government agency? Is it going to be a hospital? Yes, we have those partnerships, but we also have some pretty unique arrangements with agencies. It's really hard to put that into this presentation because there's too many to list. So we try to really, get the information from students on where your interests are and find out from the community what agencies are out there that are looking for students. And so that's how we make that match. But there's 2 types of placements. So we have the option of an employment-based practicum. So I'm going to do this backwards because it's a little bit easier that way. But the employment-based practicum is if you're working with a social services agency that can provide the opportunities that you need to demonstrate those 9 competencies, and they're willing to provide the supervision and the time for you to be a student as well. A lot of times an agency may have another department or another program, but it really depends on the agency. There's some agencies are very small, and some have multiple departments. And so we look at all of that when we go through the planning process. And so again, we have, 3 assistant directors, and we have a whole team who work with students individually on your specific situation to find out if that would work for your practicum. If you are not working in a social services agency, I would say majority of our placements are going to be traditional where, we partner with an agency and you are there solely in a student capacity. You don't have any prior relationships with the agency. It's just kind of a new learning opportunity. But we do have that employment base because a lot of times we do have students who are already working in social services, but just not as an MSW. And so this gives you that room to grow within the agency if that works out. So. And then I think before I go quiet here, I'm going to put our email address in the chat. So if you have any questions, I'll be here the remaining portion of the session here. But if you have any specific questions that don't get answered tonight, here's our email address for the field education office.
Perfect. And, this slide here just features, some of the areas where social workers may work. And as Professor Hensley said, the places where social workers work are far too many to mention in the open house tonight. And this, connects back to the field practicum experience or the social work practicum experience. Social workers work in a variety of settings, from working with the aging population or those that are in, assisted living facilities or nursing homes, working with, child and family services, working with child protection, working with homelessness programs, mental health, working in healthcare settings, and, working even in the private sector with, Fortune 500 companies or corporations. Again, the areas and the places where social workers practice is very, very diverse and too many to mention here. So we can go to the next slide. So I mentioned earlier that we have 2 stipend programs. And as I talk about the stipend programs, I do want to make sure that I also communicate that, now is the time as you are preparing to consider applying to the MSW program. Now is the time to really think about how you're going to fund your graduate school education. So within the social work department, we have 2 stipend programs that students can apply for. Each of the stipend programs come with a $10,000 stipend per academic year. For the child welfare stipend program, students that are in their generalist and specialization courses can apply for this stipend program. The only caveat with the child welfare stipend program, or CWSP, is that there is a work requirement connected to it. So you would have to work for a Virginia Department of Social Services for a certain number of time after you finish your MSW, or else you would have to pay back that money. I believe you have to work for a Virginia Department of Social Services for 1 year for each academic year that you receive funds through the stipend program. So if you're interested in child welfare, this would be a great program to apply to help, offset some of the costs of your graduate school education. With the behavioral health program, this program is specifically designed to provide some specialized training to students to feel the need in the behavioral health sector. With this particular stipend program, students can apply to this program only if they're in their specialization courses. So this means that you will have finished all your generalist courses, your generalist field practicum, and you are getting ready to start courses in either of your specializations, children, youth, and families, or adults and healthy aging. And so students can apply for this, program. Again, it is $10,000 per academic year. There is not a work requirement connected to the CAP BH program. So that's something to keep in mind as you're thinking about applying to the MSW program. But again, I would recommend starting to think through how you're going to pay for your graduate school as you are preparing to apply. And we can go to the next slide.
All right, guys, before we jump into the Q&A, and again, a reminder, if you'd like to ask questions, please pop them into the Q&A box. Now's the time to kind of do that. But in terms of the admissions process here, first step, we do obviously require a bachelor's degree. Minimum requirement there is a 3.0 GPA. So we will, of course, need copies of transcripts. We can typically get a decision with unofficial transcripts if you already have them on file, but we can also definitely help you get your hands on those official transcripts as well. We also do require copies or a copy of your resume, 2 letters of recommendation, one of which needs to come from a current or previous supervisor. If you're coming in straight from your undergrad, though, professor recommendation is also fine. And then we also do require a personal statement. A prompt will be shared with you in regards to that, and the word count for that will be 750 to 1,000. In terms of prerequisite courses, which again we would see on your transcript, we do require a class in statistics with at least a B grade. If you are missing that class, we do offer a free online class that you can take to meet that requirement. And the same goes for the other prerequisites, actually, with the English composition course that's required. And then a history or government class, we can offer some suggestions there that are pretty inexpensive. And then, of course, we also require a social science class as well that you've taken. So those are our admission requirements. If you have any questions regarding these steps, including start dates, application materials, anything else that you might need to know, please do reach out to your admissions representative. If you don't know who that person is or who your advisor is, I will be sharing the main number on our final slide here in a moment, and your advisor will be able to kind of address any questions that you might have, answer any questions that you might have about application fees, start dates, things like that. Again, I'll share those contact details with you on the very last slide here. So let's move on here to our Q&A portion. We've got a question from Elena here asking, what is the tuition for out-of-state students? So with the online program, there is no in-state or out-of-state tuition difference. It's going to be one flat tuition for whether or not you're in-state or out-of-state. That's that.
There was another question related to the stipend, I believe related to applying to the stipend programs. So each of the stipend programs have a different application deadline. So once you're admitted to the program, that information is shared with students.
I'm just scrolling through to see if I could see any other questions here. All right, guys, don't be shy. If you have any questions, please let us know. As you can see on this final slide here, you can see the phone number as well as the email address, and also the web address as well if you'd like to reach out to your admissions representative for any questions that you might have. I'll give you another minute or so to ask any of the questions that come up.
And there was also another question related to coursework. So in general, it takes students spend, I would say, 15 to 20 hours on coursework. That is separate from, related to the practicum. So just in general, about 15 to 20 hours a week.
We've got a question from Jada here. What is the accepted grade for the statistics class? That's going to be at least a B grade for that prerequisite for stats.
So one question that came in the chat was if the GPA is less than a 3.0, will work experience be considered in lieu of unsatisfactory GPA? So we, with the MSW program or in any other graduate programs that I have been involved with, prior work or life experience is not necessarily counted. But when we review applications, we are not looking at the GPA in isolation. We look at all of the components of the application and all of those requirements before making a decision. I will suggest, if your GPA is falling a little bit under a 3 point, you might want to consider taking graduate level courses as a non-degree seeking student. I've had some other applicants for students to do that.
And a question from Iskar Bell. Could you please describe the transition of how this program may lead to licensure? What does it entail, etc.?
So our MSW program prepares students to apply for licensure. So that means, whatever those licensure requirements are, we are preparing you to be able to apply for licensure. We always advise students to, check the licensing board in their state for their more specific requirements, but our coursework is designed to prepare students to apply for licensure.
Okay. And a question from Catherine here. I think regarding the prerequisites, is there a resource where we can check college course equivalency for the required courses? Essentially with the prereqs, we are looking for a basic class in statistics, history and government, English composition. Typically, if it has that on your transcript, we will accept it. If you have any questions around that, though, please do reach out to your admissions rep. They can review your transcripts and kind of give you an answer regarding that. And then a question from Elena here. For the employment-based practicum, does a supervisor have to have 2 years experience with an MSW?
For the generalist year, we do require an MSW with at least 2 years of experience. And then for specialization year, they need to have at least 3 years of experience. We do have some options available if someone at the agency doesn't meet those requirements. Sometimes we can provide an external instructor from GMU. Sometimes an agency may have a partnership with a social worker in the community, or maybe a board member or volunteer. So a lot of times, we're able to kind of find a workaround for that requirement, but also making sure that you have the supervision and guidance that you need on site. So there's some options available, and your coordinator can help you with that.
And I see someone was asking about being provided with a comprehensive list of places where social workers work. And, as we stated earlier in the presentation, it really would be challenging to give one list. We wouldn't be able to actually really even contain the list, anywhere, because social workers work in so many different areas and in so many different types of employment, from the, child welfare agencies to Department of Social Services, to police departments, to hospitals, to schools or public schools, to, private practice, counseling centers, community mental health centers. I mean, and I'm not even hitting the list, to working in EAP agencies or employment assistance programs, to working in psychiatric hospitals. It's just too varied, and it's, and too many social workers impact every aspect of our society. So my recommendation would be for you all to check out the website for the National Association of Social Workers. And that website is socialworkers.org. I think it would be a great opportunity to review that website. They have a wealth of information about our profession, places where, social workers are employed. I would also recommend looking at the website for the Council on Social Work Education. They also frequently have information about where social workers are employed, and information about our field in social work education. It would just be we would not be able to give, honestly, a full comprehensive list, because social workers work in so many different areas and in so many different places.
And a question here from May: if I have a degree from outside the US with no GPA, so in that situation, we would require your transcripts to be evaluated. Typically, we recommend that you get a course-by-course evaluation from WES, which is World Education Services. Reach out to them and get that evaluation from them. And then they can send that directly to us, so we can understand the US equivalency of your GPA. And that's if your degree was earned outside of the US. Okay. And then we have a question from Iskar, but this is branching off of the supervising role. For instance, myself working at a psychiatric office, could I shadow the social workers at my work? Would that account for any of my practice hours in the employment-based practicum section? Let me know if I'm misunderstanding that. That's from ISCOB.
So normally, once you're approaching the planning session or the planning cycle for the practicum, which we usually start several months in advance, sometimes the fall before you begin your practicum, to start talking about this. So what we look for is the opportunity to meet all 9 of the social work competencies and making sure that you have the support on site to meet those expectations. And so we would probably, contact the agency to verify what opportunities are available and, make sure that the experiences they are providing you with align with our competencies so that we can make sure that it would be a good fit. And then we can, work on finalizing those plans. But that's what we do. I mean, with every single agency, and a lot of times students will bring us new agencies, like maybe they have heard of a new agency in the area, or, the thing is with social work, it is always evolving and changing with the needs of the community. So there's a lot of new, nonprofits. There's, all kinds of growth and change from year to year. And so we're always adding new partnerships. So that might be a situation where we would just contact the agency and talk through, some of the learning activities they could provide you with to make sure that it meets the requirements.
But keep in mind that your practicum and even the employment-based is more than just shadowing the social worker. So there are specific practice and learning activities that students have to be able to engage in at that agency. So it goes beyond just shadowing.
We've got a question from Marielle here regarding transcripts. So regarding transcripts with your unofficials, if you have an unofficial on file, we can sometimes get a decision with the unofficial copies that you have. A transcript is considered unofficial if it's not sent to us directly from the institution that you attended. As long as it has all the information that we need, we can accept the unofficial for a decision. And then if you are accepted, we will need to get the officials on file. We could definitely help you with that. You would be asked to fill out an online transcript request form. We would put in a third-party request to your university and try and get that transcript on file. Sometimes they don't accept third-party requests, and then if that's the case, we'll share a link with you and try and get that official transcript on file. So we will help you with getting your officials on file if you don't have them. We will need that if you are accepted. So just to bear that in mind, that the official is the one that comes directly from the school that you attended. Okay. Thank you so much for your questions so far, guys. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to add. I'll give you another minute or so to do that. And again, please take note of the details on your screen here so you are able to reach out to your admissions representative if you have further questions or you're interested in applying. I'll give you a few more seconds here.
And just keep in mind that, for spring semester, the application deadline is going to be a little bit earlier. It's going to be in December. So you want to keep that in mind as you are gathering your application materials. I believe it's going to be around December 4th would be the application deadline.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, definitely 4th of December is the deadline. Start date for that is 8th of January. We do work on rolling admissions, so the spring is currently open. The sooner you apply, the sooner you kind of get a decision coming through. So just bear that in mind as well, that you are able to apply for spring. But the final cut-off point there is the 4th of December for an 8th of January start date.
And also, I think we didn't touch on with the advanced standing, that is for students that already have a BSW or have obtained their BSW within the last 5 years. You can apply for advanced standing. And what that means is that you don't have to take those generalist courses. You will be starting the program ready to begin your clinical courses. So for the advanced standing, I think the first course you would take is an elective in Social Work 674, which is psychopathology. So if you do already have a BSW, a Bachelor of Social Work from an accredited university, advanced standing is also an option that you can pursue. However, for advanced standing, we only admit for fall and spring semesters, and the deadline has already passed for advanced standing for spring semester. So you would be applying for advanced standing for fall semester.
All right, I don't see any more questions coming in. Professor Henry, did you have anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up here?
I just appreciate the opportunity. And, again, we're happy to answer any questions at swfield.gmu@gmu.edu. I'm so used to typing it. But yeah, if you have any questions on specific agencies or anything like that, definitely reach out to us.
Thank you. And Professor King, anything else you want to add before we wrap up here?
No, just thank you all for your interest in the MSW program. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I look forward to hopefully connecting with many of you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in on the questions there and listening so attentively. And thank you again to Professor King and Professor Hensley for your time this evening. Have a great rest of your night, everyone.